Hey, it's Gregory Kallenberg. We have a very, very special guest today on Prizecast. Ladies and gentlemen, give a huge virtual round of applause and a socially distanced hug to our friend up in Maine, Xander Berkeley. Xander, how's it going up there?
It's going, I think, as well as one could ever hope or expect it to go during a pandemic.
And just to make it clear to our audience, you are in Maine at the very tip top of the United States.
Well, yeah, why would I lie about a thing like that? Hey, want me to prove it? Let me just see if this, what about a little brown shingled house with the late afternoon sunlight reflecting off of the bay? There, now do you believe me? I'm in Maine.
From what I hear, the people up there are super nice. So I'm sure there's a big problem with people not hugging.
Yeah, I mean, that's another little hidden, sort of unforeseen advantage to having moved to Maine, where people are a bit socially distant. Anyway, New England briskness is working perfectly in our isolation.
So Xander, you're an actor, but you're also, as if people don't know, an amazing artist and a creator. Is this a time that squelches that creativity, or is it something that really kind of feeds that creative soul that you have?
Well, I mean, I've been reflecting on when I first left college and moved to New York as a teenager. Still, I left college a little early. I started college a little early and left it a little early to get straight into the business. New York wasn't as expensive then. You could get a beautiful apartment that also looked out on Riverside Drive and the park and the Hudson River. And I remember staying in that apartment a lot and just moving from, I'd play the guitar for a little while. I would memorize a speech for something, and then I would work on a mask or painting. I would work on my journal. I would read, and I would sort of circulate around the apartment where I had different stations of the cross, as it were, artistic crossroads, all of which I've kept going over the years, all of which have kept me company, have been my companions as an actor on location. And so I've sustained that. And, when I've been holed up in isolation in hotels during, say, filming North Country in Minnesota during the middle of winter, or shooting the cherry orchard in Bulgaria, when there was nothing to do other than work in your hotel room at times when you weren't working. And so I've always kept, my creativity has always been right there. Even when I had like a one-room apartment in LA when I was young, when I first got out there, I still used my kitchen as a studio, and I always cooked. And so I'm always doing all these things that are very home based. And so, yeah, I get to, I think, have a slight, I feel a little bit like the cat that ate the canary, because I'm used to the merciless vicissitudes of fate, as an actor is, because nothing is predictable in our life. And so I'm accustomed to the non-routinized existence. And I'm also staying involved in all the activities that I love to do most anyway, being around my family, cooking, playing guitar, writing, reading, and doing a lot of, I've been doing a lot of these podcast, oh my God, I showed my age, doing podcasts for friends, and also doing things on Twitter for homeschooling and for nursing homes, doing a lot of poetry online. So yeah, all those things are, and then homeschooling, it's a drag for the kids to be cut off from their friends, but it's a boon for us to get to be around them so much, and they don't get to just run off and be with their friends. They are stuck having to be around us.
So Xander, you seem like you're in a good place creatively, but you also have a unique perspective on the rest of the world and the way that we are all out there dealing with what's going on. What kind of art or even film do you think is going to come out of this pandemic?
I think one of the things that's really interesting to me, and I've discussed it with friends, is that while we've become isolated from one another and taken away from possibilities of getting together in the flesh, many of us, especially those of us in places as remote as Maine, suddenly feel reconnected to old friends who we haven't looked at and spoken to on the computer or the FaceTime. And especially Zoom is now the big thing. You can't turn left without seeing it there. There's the whole social aspect of it that if you master the little bit of technology involved in setting it up, that you can have your wife or your kids and yourself all on separate images along with a friend that, family friends and we'll all have dinner together sometimes. And a movie could come out of that. I think many probably will, using the split screen technology, and then maybe you have the option to go in and isolate a particular screen image and zoom in on that in clever ways, maybe even interactive entertainment whereby you can follow the story that you want to, choose the square that you find most interesting and go to that. Just yesterday was the 20th anniversary of a movie I did called Time Code. And it was the fourth movie that I had done with Mike Figgis. And what we did was we had 4 cameras that ran without any editorial cuts for 90 minutes. And you had to follow camera A and then cross over at minute 15 to camera B or D. And then C would come in and then you'd follow that back out. And it was all choreographed. We rehearsed for a week and then we shot for a week. We shot 2 versions a day since we could shoot it in 90 minutes, the whole film. And we were only going to end up using 1 take because it was a composite of 4 screen images, go, and then cut 90 minutes later without any editing. One of the most extraordinary things about that film is it proved how the brain was capable of following and tracking several things at once. And right a year later, I met my wife doing the pilot of 24, and sure enough, they were using that 4 screen images and going into a commercial break to tie the different storylines together and then back to 1 screen image. But I think that that'll become really part of the vernacular, the film vernacular, because we're becoming so accustomed to it.
I think the ultimate Zoom meeting would be if you could just click on the one person you wanted to hear instead of having to look at the 11 people all sort of talking over each other. And it's certainly bringing a different dynamic to communication. The wonderful thing is we're, of course, connected through Film Prize. You were a mentor and a judge, and you really left an incredible impact on the creators that were there that year. I'm curious what you would tell them, given all these inputs that you have and all these things that you're seeing and all the things that you're doing. What are those things that they should be doing, specifically in the filmmaking world? What should they be doing in this time to create? I mean, should they be writing scripts? Should they be baking pies? Should they be, what should they be doing?
I think they should do both: bake pies and write scripts, read books. I'm reading a lot of books. Look at that, William Shakespeare signed autographed copy of his complete works.
Super nice guy.
Incredibly nice. For a guy that's as accomplished as he he's still, I don't know, modest. Anyway, yeah, doing a lot of delving. I've been reading a lot of Poe and reading a lot of things that, because I've been posting these things. So it's been sort of like reaching back to my first loves like T.S. Eliot and Edgar Allan Poe. And so I think that there's something about drawing on, when you're just in your home, the things that you have that maybe you haven't looked at in a while, and going, what made me want to become a writer, an actor, a director, a cinematographer, and look at your original influences and hearken to them and let them touch you in that place that was your origin and genesis of becoming an artist, and see what comes out of that.
So, I got to tell you something. For somebody who talks about self-isolation, for someone who's in Maine, for God's sake, you're somebody that seems to also feed off of people in a way that is
well, that sounds like I'm a vampire of some sort of a succubus or an incubus. I don't literally feed off them.
But you do.
I do.
And I will tell you in the best way. What do you kind of miss most about kind of what that old world was? Again, you're in Maine, you're creating, you're painting, you're cooking, you're doing all those things. But what do you miss most about the way we were?
Well, this has been, again, a really interesting sort of synchronicity for us because we self-isolated by moving to Maine. I was in LA for almost 40 years, and I had developed a huge community of really, really close friends. I had salons on a regular basis where we would have people over, painters and musicians and actors and writers and directors and cinematographers and enjoying, sort of little salons, dinner parties. I cook, and so I was always throwing dinner parties. I missed that maybe the most, and we've been doing that here in Maine with the new friends that we've been growing since coming. But it was a real shock to the system to leave a community that I'd been in for that long and had that many dear friends in. And that's what I've missed most about Los Angeles was isolating and separating. And a lot of them have been coming in the summertime because this is it was a tourist destination for the last 2 summers. A lot of people would come, and we live in an old inn from 1742 that was a functioning inn until 1992, and so it's very well set up for friends to come and visit here, and that's always great because you have it's almost like Chekhovian, a month in the country kind of sustained visits, going deeper than just a dinner party visit. But in general, yeah, it's friends and just being together with people that I think we all miss the most, right?
I got to tell you, I've told lots and lots of people that this quarantine is my kryptonite.
Oh, really?
I'm definitely someone who needs people. Xander, you've done it all, and to go through your filmography, we could fill a whole prize cast. I'm curious, is there a correlation between what we're going through right now and a role that you have played in your past?
Well, I was just thinking the other day that there are. I did a movie called Safe with Todd Haynes. I played Julianne Moore's husband. It was about a woman who has environmental illness, but we shot it as a period film for the late '80s in the Valley, which was hysterical because styles had changed just that much moving from the late '80s into the early '90s, and the Valley was already in its own little time capsule for the kind of people we were portraying. The film had such an alienating quality to it, and we shot the first day we were supposed to shoot was the day of the big earthquake in Los Angeles in the early '90s, and we went to work right after that, and there were aftershocks the entire time, and the place where we were shooting this clinic that she has to go to, and we would have to run out of the building at intervals every time there'd be an aftershock because it wasn't terribly well made. And the trees would be like moving, and it was just like all of nature had turned on us. And I had just done a film right at that exact same time, I think maybe just before, just called Roswell for Showtime. And it was all about the UFO stuff. And I had all these guys that were flying, because they were flying early B-210 planes and stuff like that in the show. And a lot of these guys were coming up and giving me all these like insider documents about UFOs. And there were all these people around that were like talking about aliens. And so that story fed into Safe until I was really starting to feel a little creeped out. And then right after that, not too long after that, the guy who wrote Gattaca wanted me involved from the beginning of that, and we did all the table readings before shooting it. And that was, about the genetic selection and strangeness of the future, and a lot of ways, a lot of those movies, and I'd say even to a certain extent, Terminator 2, looking at technology taking over and coming back from the future. Weird future shock films that I've worked on over the years have been coming back to me, because you get into a character and you get in not only to the character, but you get into the atmosphere of the film that you're doing while you're doing it. And it sort of overtakes you to some extent and naturally leads you into another film somewhat along a similar or concurrent or adjacent line. And I've been feeling stuff about that a little bit.
So you've taken me down this weird rabbit hole. Gattaca in particular, talking about a dystopian future, and facing what we're facing now. I'm kind of curious what happens when we get over this hill, when we're able to see what's on the other side of this. What do you think is there, and how are we going to interact with it?
Well, I'm going to seize this as an opportunity to continue answering your last question and answer this question simultaneously, and shoehorn some more of my film and television credits into this, like a celebration of myself, my career. I'm usually humble, but I'm not now. I'm going to go the other way. I played 3 leaders of a dystopian community back to back. Coincidence? I don't know. But I was playing Gregory, who was the leader of Hilltop in The Walking Dead, and I was playing this guy in 12 Monkeys, which was really pretty wonderfully done cable series that Sci-Fi was shooting, and I played the leader of the dystopian community in that show. And then I was playing, suddenly asked to come down and play the leader in the Divergent, Insurgent, Allegiant, and I was in Allegiant, established as the leader of a dystopian community in this apocalyptic future that we're now facing. So I think I pretty much have to become a cult leader, a community leader. I bought properties in Maine to bring the film business here, but really, I think I'm just looking for cult members. I've got a lot of space, and things are going to get grim. There's no Kool-Aid as part of this. We're not going to try and tag on to the Hale-Bopp comet or any of that stuff. We should just make art. That's all.
So I'll tell you, Xander, if you are selling a cult up in Maine, I'm buying, because I'll be up there lickety split. I'd love to hang out with you and do that. But in all seriousness, I'm curious. You have so many people that follow you. You have so many people that you influenced here at the Louisiana Film Prize that are watching right now. What are some words you could give them of inspiration that really would take them through this time and over to the other side, but also keep them creating?
Try to take advantage of this little Pollyanna quote, every cloud has a silver lining. This one definitely has a whole spectrum of silver linings, because we go out into the world and we're immediately distracted. We're pulled into a million different things in a million different directions. We have all these sort of random sort of encounters, and they can all take us off track. And I think for artists, especially because film used to be something that required a tremendous amount of money to create a film, it doesn't anymore. And we're thrown up against our own devices. Let's take advantage of it, and let's really communicate with our friends that we want to work with. Reach out to them. Don't be shy, because they may just be sitting around home staring at the walls, drinking too much or some damn thing. And so they may need and want to be called into a new form of action. And so reach out to those who you want to work with, get to work, and write that script and finish that script. Use this as an opportunity to get work done, and or work on things that you need and have been meaning to work on that you can do at home. And build your skills, build your chops, whatever they are. Watch films every night. Get the Criterion Collection and study foreign films and study art films and film noir, and get inspired by the best films that have ever been made, and think about what's the best film you can make, and who would you make it with, and what would it be about, and how can you do it now for nothing, and do it.
I love that. I love that so much. But take it even a step further. We can't work all the time. Xander, I gave you some homework, and it was for you to create your quarantine movie watch list. So are you ready to deliver this massive piece of news that's going to change the world from a cinematic perspective?
Well, just as I was answering past questions in the future, I was actually answering future questions in the past. And all I can do is just recommend that you see all of my work. I've done a lot of stuff, and I think it's all good. And so you should really just study Xander Berkeley movies and TV shows, and gosh, there's just so much. And you can, stuff that I thought I did that I was going to just never have to see again, it's still out there. So your work is cut out for you. Just punch in my name and have it be on like Google Alert. And if I've done it, it's probably pretty damn good. I mentioned the Criterion Collection. I think there's no better source out there. Maybe Roku has things. I'm about to get that. But I've been going back to, just like I said, with Poe and Shakespeare and T.S. Eliot, my first loves as a young artist in terms of writing. And I've been doing that with film as well. I've been going back to Fellini, just saw 8.5 again. I've been watching Bergman, and I've been watching Truffaut, and I've been watching British Film Society or British Film Institute, BFI, has an incredible list of their top 100 films of all time, as does the Criterion Collection. And I really recommend, instead of my just randomly talking about myself or the things that I just happen to have watched, go to those lists and check out anything in the top 10 that you haven't seen before. And see it immediately.
Xander, I got to tell you, I so appreciate you being here. As with all of our conversations, you've taken us into these incredible places and really given us a lot to think about. Earlier, you said that you play guitar, and I'm curious if you are willing to grab the guitar you mentioned and maybe take us out with a song.
Well, did I mention that I also paint? I've been working not just on Shakespeare. This is my Rembrandt self-portrait. But yeah, I do. I have my guitar. It's all right here at my fingertips. I can turn over here and start painting. I can turn over here and start playing my guitar. 10 years ago, on a cold, dark night, there was somebody killed 'neath the town hall light. Few at the scene, and they all did agree that the man who ran looked a lot like me. She walks these hills in a long black veil. She visits my grave where the night winds wail. Anyway, that's a haunting little ballad, once performed on a record by many different people, and I just started playing that for you.
I got to tell you, it is wonderful seeing you. Hey, cheers to you. Cheers to you, Xander. Thank you so much. Viva Xander Berkeley. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for being on this very special Prizecast. Remember to like, subscribe, and share. See us every weekday here at noon. And Xander, I love seeing you. See you on the flip side. Can't wait to give you a big hug when the time's appropriate.
Yeah, at a distance, my friend. I don't think we're going to go back to hugging or shaking hands. I think we can just pick up the Japanese bow. How about that? I can't wait to bow you.